Hello, Spooky Empire. Happy Sunday.
Good.
That's nice. I'm gonna leave and come back so you can do that again. I feel like I need to have that every time I enter a room. Hello, are you guys enjoying yourselves so far?
Yeah!
Good. We are about to give you more entertainment. It's gonna be a fun panel. Please join me in welcoming Darryl Ferrucci, John Amplas, Paul Musser, and Michael Tomaso. Hopefully Eugene will join us shortly. He might just wander in here zombie style. I'm on board with that. Well, it's not morning anymore. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Hi, how's everybody doing?
Great.
Good.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Is this thing on?
It works.
So I will get right started so that we can get all the info that we possibly can. I would love to hear from each of you about how you got involved with the projects, your respective projects. We could just go down the road.
Okay. Sure. Okay.
Start with Darryl.
Well, first of all, I mean, I so this is kind of a newly arranged panel, right? Called "I Was a George Romero Zombie." I am sorry, but I wasn't. No, but I am a monster, of course. Fluffy, the monster in Creepshow. In case anybody didn't know that. How did I get involved in that? Well, you know, it would be awesome if I had a story that was useful. I mean, I have the story, but like if there was a story that was useful that you could take, like if you want to go do that, but no, this is like pure random luck and occurrences. I mean, I was Tom Savini's assistant, and I was just there to assist in making everything, and for previous films too, like, you know, in the slasher craze, before Creepshow, right? The Burning, The Prowler. And so Tom would get a movie and call me up, and so he's like, okay, we're doing a big one. You know? It's Stephen King and it's George Romero. You finally get to meet George, you know? And so there I was, and when it was time to, you know, start planning making a monster, this was going to require bringing an actor in our little special effects studio over and over and over again. And of course, getting that actor paid for having their whole head cast, an arm cast, and test fitting, adjusting. I mean, we're talking about like dozens of times in the chair, like to try stuff and fit it. And so, since I had been in the habit of just doing a little stunt thing here and there when needed, and just fill in, like fall down a hill when some, you know, kid in a horror film gets pushed out of a window or whatever, I was like, well, I mean, I'm here all the time, I could just play the monster. And Tom was like, right, great idea. And so that's how it happened.
So right place, right time.
Yes.
Excellent.
But also, yes, pretty much.
That's a good tip. Be in the right place at the right time.
Just do that.
It's that simple.
Golden. Yeah.
All right, next, how did you get involved in the George Romero universe?
Me?
Yeah.
This is going to be a story.
Okay. George came to see me in a play. I was a little older as a college student, but the year I graduated, we were doing a play called Philemon, which is a Tom Jones, Harvey Schmidt musical, same play, same people that wrote Fantastics. And so he saw me in this play and we talked afterwards. He evidently liked something about whatever it was I was doing. And he said, I have this script that I've been working on, but I had an older character in mind. But when I saw you and what you were doing, I thought, let's check him out. So he went away, he rewrote it, and then a month or two later, I got a call from him and said, I'd like you to play Martin. So that's how I first got involved. I did 6 movies with George. I was very fortunate. Very sweet, kind, funny, one of the smartest people I ever knew. And so I was fortunate enough to always get a telephone call every time he was doing a new project. So I had work.
It's always good.
Yeah. So it started with Martin, and then Dawn of the Dead, Night Riders, Creepshow. What was after Creepshow? Who knows? Day of the Dead. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, you guys know more about these movies than we do.
We need details or chronology.
We were
We know where
only
to
in
go.
them. We didn't see them until later.
Well, before we move on, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Eugene Clark, who just joined us. So everyone is sharing their stories about how they got involved in their respective George Romero projects. So, Michael, please take it away.
I'm Michael Tomaso, and I played the Mailbox 22 football player zombie in the scenes that were filmed on Sanibel Island in Fort Myers. And how I got involved in the project was, I've been friends with Kyra Schoen for many years, who played Karen in The Night of the Living Dead. And I just graduated from high school that June in 1984, and my media specialist, who was my mentor in school for the videography work that I do, he said that George Romero was going to be in Fort Myers making another sequel to Night of the Living Dead. I said, well, that can't be true. I said, he usually makes his films in Pittsburgh. Why would he come to Florida? So I called Kyra up on the phone, and she said, yes, it's true. George lives on Sanibel Island in Fort Myers, in Lee County, and the name of his company is called Sanibel Films. Here's the number. Give him a call and tell him you'd like to be involved in the project. So I did, and I called the number. I was only 19 at the time, so you're bulletproof, you feel. So I called, and George himself answered the phone, and I told him who I was and who had referred me and why I was calling. And he says, well, that's great. I'll have my wife Christine Forrest Romero. I'll have her give you a call back, and we'll get you in touch with our casting guy down there, whose name was Gary Bratz. And the next thing that I knew, I got that call, and I didn't know I was going to be the football player zombie until I actually got there. And then, they put the jersey on, and that's how I got involved.
Amazing. I love that. Paul, how did you get involved?
I'm Paul Musser. Quite by accident, I guess. I had been playing in a band by the name of Fluid that was being managed by Pat DeCesar, Rich Engler Productions, and they had this idea about coming and being in this movie, and I said, great, what do I do? And I showed up, and I just followed their directions, and I really don't have a whole lot of recall about what was going on at that time, other than it was a really dreary, rainy day in western Pennsylvania.
Not unlike many other days.
Yeah. Those of you from Pennsylvania know what I'm talking about. That's basically it.
And Eugene?
I received, we have what's called a breakdown service for acting agents, and I received a call from an agent saying there was a request for me to audition. I hadn't heard of George at the time. I was in the bathroom. I was in the bathroom just now too, yeah.
I feel that.
I went number one, and my body goes, number two. I went, we haven't done it all day long. Okay. I can do that in 2 minutes. Go ahead. Go ahead. Try me. So anyway, so I was in the bathroom, and I noticed, I can be a germaphobe at times, okay? So I noticed guys were going number one, number two, they weren't washing their hands. And a lot of you guys right now in the bathroom, this is you washing your hands. That's not why. That's why we do elbows. We don't do hands. Anyway, I was in the bathroom, and there were maybe 200 or so guys, mostly white, in there, and washing their hands. I'm not saying black guys do wash their hands, so they're just as bad as y'all. So there's George. I forget one of the producers from Universal. There's an office chair. Like a wing back, whatever those things are, nice one. There's a little desk and there's an office telephone. George says, "You're dead and you are remembering what it's like to be alive. Go."
Wow.
So I sit there. And I just did that for a long time. And George said, "Are you okay?" Now I was thinking, how bad do I want this part? Because I know those guys been touching that telephone. So I got down and I put my back against the wall. And I put the phone on my head like a pillow. I drew up in the fetal position and I fell asleep for a little while. Could have been 3 seconds, could have been 3 minutes, I have no idea. And then, you ever see, well, some of y'all are young, like Bam Bam in the Flintstone, I picked up the phone and I started beating the phone like Bam Bam, right? And then, oh no, before Bam Bam, like a baby, babies put things in their mouths. Yeah.
Good man.
So I picked up the phone and I started licking on it like a baby. I know. And then, it was nasty. And then I started hitting like Bam Bam. And then I stood up and picked up a chair and I roared like just in a rage with the chair with my head shaking it. And George stood up and he went, "Oh, you got me." And about a couple weeks later, he asked me if I wanted to play the part. And at the time, we had celebrity golf tournaments. I love golfing. I'm not very good, but I love the little prizes they give you, like 5 or 6 balls and like a hat and a towel. I just like that stuff. I'm still a grown kid. And it's cool because he looked at me kind of strange. And he went, "It's in October sometimes, whenever." He could have said, "I'm offering you a part and you want to play golf." But he didn't. So that's cool. That's how I got the part.
Amazing. I guess you really did want the part.
Yeah.
You're licking that phone. I don't know about that. I don't think I could have done that, but more power to you. Amazing. So I would like to know if any of you have kept any mementos of any kind from any of the projects you've worked on. Any of them? Yeah. Have you kept? That's the actual. Really amazing. I would never take it off. Paul, did you keep anything from any of the sets?
A bunch of photographs. I think that's basically about it, though.
No props or costume pieces. Yeah. Darryl, do you have anything?
Well, this was a long time ago, and I had some cool things. I had like, and by the way, I don't have them anymore. But there was like a spare neck wound appliance from Carrie and I that we didn't use. That was a cool little thing, and boy, I was young. I was living in New York City with my dad. I had my own apartment, and after leaving that place in New York City, going back to California, I can recall, I had a yard sale, so to speak, but this is in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and I would just I would be open all night long, and people would be getting out of the clubs at 4 a.m. They'd come by my yard sale, and I sold Carrie and I's wounded neck probably for a couple dollars. I mean, I was moving to California. There were other things. Geez, I had Upson Pratt's telephone. I had one of Geordie's telephones, the stand-up, really, really old kind with the hook and all that. And it had holes drilled and it had a little bit of green stuff on it. I don't know if it was extra, but no, I don't have any stuff left. But I'm glad that you mentioned photographs, Paul, because that I do have. I've got these super cool, a little stack of black and white 8x10s that are the production stills that were like shot during the making, while we were making it, and those are really cool. So pictures are much easier to keep around than neck wounds and monster heads. I had a rubber fluffy head, which was solid RTV rubber, in which we made as a safety piece. Like that was gonna be like, when we first, you make molds and like all different, you take them apart and put them back in, you have to do it over and over again. And we had a safety. Like the first time, Tom sculpted Fluffy's entire head, and then we cover it with plaster. We get the impression. We immediately filled it with this RTV rubber and then set it aside. So if the main mold like cracked in half in the oven or something, we got it. We got the backup. Yeah, never needed it. I had that. It was cool. But it wasn't gonna last forever. It was getting like, it was red, dark red. It's like the RTV rubber you might use for like gasket making, sticking parts of your car together, And the surface started getting like kind of sticky and gross. This is not gonna be permanent, and yeah, it's long gone. Too bad. Oh well.
Would have been fun.
But the photos are awesome, and for the first time, for first convention ever, finally, we scanned some of them. I've got a couple of them at my table, and it's me being like put into the monster costume with our people helping me.
Oh, that's fun. Do you have those at your table?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I got a
fun.
couple of those black and whites.
Oh, great. John?
You gave me an idea.
I
Yeah, I got some of Gino putting me up in makeup. Thank you, brother. I got those. Put those up.
Sorry, John?
I have photographs, primarily when I didn't know, I had no idea. We're talking almost 50 years ago, so I had no idea you guys existed. So it took me a long, long time. Lori Cardill called me several times and said, you need to contact so-and-so, an agent, and this and that, and I'm working with him, and I don't know, that sounds kind of weird.
You mean to go to conventions?
Yeah.
Convention?
Yeah, the convention. And then, ultimately, I did it, and boy, you guys are terrific.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the horror fans are the best fans in the
No,
world.
you!
100%.
You are so loyal, and you know and understand filmmaking. That's the amazing thing. There's so many of you that make your own movies. And I'm jealous, and I'm also amazed and happy that you guys know so much. You know more about these movies than I do.
And they've asked us to be in some of them, John.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. I was lucky for that reason. But no, I used to give stuff away because I was so dumb about what was going on out here in the convention world. So, but yeah, I mean, I have a lot of stuff now.
Yeah.
And
Is there anything that you wish you would have kept?
Huh?
Is there anything specific you wish you would have kept?
Yeah, I gave away a full, huge Martin poster. I guess it had to live in one of those boxes in the theater. I just gave it away. You know, I had no idea that it had any value other than having my name on it. And that's not that valuable. But yeah, I was a little, George and I used to laugh about it because he used to do the same thing. Somebody come up and, want him to do an autograph, he just signed it. Signed it, and thank you so much, and away you go. Yeah.
Do you have anything that you wanted to, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But you were done.
I just have my Dead Walk newspaper, which Christine was given out to all of the extras, with who had been a zombie in a film that day, and I still have the original, and it's laminated and framed, and then a while back I had it scanned so that I could reprint it into 11 by 17 volumes, and I have them on my desk, so, you know, or on my table, so that those of you that want them, you can buy them and I can autograph them for you, but that's an actual reprint of my actual paper. That's it, that's all I have.
Nicotero, or Greg Nicotero, put that paper together? Was it him?
I'm not sure who did it, but
I think it was Greg.
only the headlines. You know, it said the dead walk,
Yeah.
and then president's whereabouts unknown, things like that. But if you look closely at the text, it was just gibberish that was cut and pasted, because it was only designed to be used on camera. So you're not going to see that fine. All you're going to see is the headline and just the taglines, but the body of it is just gibberish, but you can't see that on camera. Not even on the Blu-ray, I looked.
You were going to say something, John?
Yeah, you know, I just want to say that, like, back then, I certainly didn't. I would bet anything nobody here thought, oh, this little piece of stuff for Creepshow is going to be super valuable to some collector someday. I mean, I tend to gather interesting things. So that's why I had Upson Pratt's telephone. I mean, I used to like take telephones apart. I don't know. I messed around with it. I probably used it as a phone for a little while in New York. That when we actually plugged phones in the wall, and then it just went along by the way, like in the junk pile at some point. But one thing that was personally cool, and this unfortunately it just is gone forever, is like Tom had like a storyboard pad, like a pad of paper this big, and it had like little TV frame shapes, and this was a little storyboard of a sequence of the creature, like I think maybe going for like Charlie the grad student and like chomping him or some action like that, and of Tom's pencil sketch that I wound up with, and it vanished sometime, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. It's just gone, who knows where, forever, and that was cool. I mean, I personally liked it.
Yeah, that would have been a really cool thing.
And if I wanted to make it like available to some collector, they would be like so stoked, right?
Yeah,
like,
100%.
like, that's a special thing that's
Absolutely.
gone.
You have it up here. You have the memory.
I do.
Right. You wanted to say something?
The telephone, that's Pratt's phone, that's the one with the light up buttons on it.
Yeah, it's white. It's just like there's multiple buttons. And
Yeah, where we
he's
get
like
the
swishing it like
speakerphone,
this,
yeah.
and getting all pissed off,
That was great.
and cursing at people. Yeah.
So we all know and love George Romero, and we've heard many, many stories over the years about what an amazing human being he was. Is there any story, like a behind-the-scenes story that you have about him that maybe fans have never heard before that speaks to him and what kind of person he was? Something funny, some anecdote, a funny direction he may have given.
Okay, that is the one thing that I have. There's a little tidbit here for you. I'll bet you John's got something like real substance, because he's got a major record, you know, of things he's done. But so there I was, the creature, and there's this sort of contrast, right? Because everything you just said about what a kind, gentle guy George was is so true. I didn't know him well, you know, and I didn't interact with him a whole bunch, but I mean, some. And so he's directing me, I'm the creature, and like there I am, like with the grad student. I'm killing the grad student. We're in the set, which is like the basement, right, next to the stairs. And I'm like, you know, smashing Charlie's head against the wall, which is not concrete. It looks like it's wood. Anyway, but, and like we do a take or two, and George is there just, you know, kind of thoughtful, and he says, so smash his head against the wall like it's a rotten cantaloupe. That's exactly what he said, or very, very close to that. And that's the contrast I'm talking about. Is like. And he said it so calmly, and just like that's what you do. And like, so it's like the savagery of the imagery he produces, and also that he's casually directing someone to smash a person's head like a rotten cantaloupe. That's the contrast, right? And like he produces all this absolute horror, and all these people getting killed horribly, and humanity being destroyed.
Yeah.
And yet he's this mellow, cool guy.
And I found that to be true about a lot of people in the horror community, fans
Yeah.
and filmmakers alike. You
Sure.
know, we enjoy it as fans, the gore and the awful things, but by and large, the community is just beautiful and wonderful and just kind-hearted people.
Yeah, just a bunch of cool sweethearts. You probably all were like weirdos when they were in elementary school.
100%.
Which I was.
All the way
I was
weirdos,
one type.
mister.
So was I.
All the weirdos grow up and
Yeah.
you get to fight each other.
And then we become the cool kids. Anyone else have a fun story about George?
I wish I did. I wish I had a fun story. But I can certainly attest to George's calmness and his pleasant demeanor. If I remember if I did well and he appreciated it, I would get a nice job, man. Nice job. And that was the extent of it, and it was enough.
A thumbs up, nice job from George Romero. I think you did, yeah?
Absolutely, it was enough. Yeah.
I want to add something, you know, which like this is just this little tidbit, right? Like by George quote, right? And you even specifically mentioned, hey, a bit of direction. I was actually thinking about this earlier today, and like, in all these years, for the first time, I had the thought, you know, that is not any kind of direction that actually directs you to do any particular kind of thing. That's just a feeling, right? And that's how George was directing me in that moment. It was like, here's a feeling to work with, right? And it's like, and so, I mean, I went with it at the time. I was like, okay, cool, and I did that, and I guess it worked out, but 40-something years later, I'm thinking, oh, so George was actually directing in a subtle way. That comment contains nothing about what you actually do. I mean, how do you smash someone's head as though it's a rotten melon? There's no information on that.
Our first day of shooting of Martin was George set up the camera, and Mike Gornick, who was there to assist him, George stepped aside and said, "Mike, would you like to shoot this?" And Mike said, "Yeah." And so from that point on, Mike became his cinematographer. And then George said, "This is the first time I feel like a director. That he's not having to, you know, play all the roles of the production." So yeah, it was cool.
George
Eugene.
did not direct me at all. He didn't even tell me how to walk. In fact, he told no one how to walk. He said, just walk. But for me, it was all in the script. And he allowed you to experiment. You try something, and you know you really wanted to please him, and you look up like that, and you know how dogs turn their head. If he turned his head, you knew, okay, try it again. And one day we had this scene, and it was very, very emotional for me. The entire script for me was basically genocide. They were trying to kill the zombies, and so in my mind, all the horrific genocidal, if that's a word, incidents around the world is what I was going through in my head. So whenever I did those howls, in fact, we had to reproduce the howls. It's called overdubbing in the studio because there was noises or whatever. But the howls you hear in the movies aren't what you heard live. The ones live were more heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching than that. I had a really tough Jamaican friend named Bobby, and he came on set that night, and he was like, "Yo, man, you mash me up, brother, with the thing, man, you scare me, brother." I like Jamaican accents, I can't do it very well, but one night we had this scene, and they said, okay, it was really hard scene, and they, George was going, okay, we're gonna do one more take, but we have a technical problem. So I'm staying in the emotion of it all. And I don't know how long it was. It could have been 10 minutes. It could have been an hour. I'm looking around and it's dark. They've moved set. And no one told me, we're done, we got it. And how do you go up to George and go, "George, yo, bro, You don't. Second AD, he's like, man, next time, can you let a brother know? But I think for George, for me, it was in the script, and I think the reason why George had us improv is he wanted to see what could you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And I think what I brought to the table, he was like, fine, just let it go. But I'm trying to decide if I'm gonna tell you something.
I say it.
Well,
Tell us, we want to hear it.
okay. It's true that I'm a germaphobe every now and then. Unless I drop food, something on the table, and it's my last piece of meat, I'm like, just pick it up, eat it. Part of me sitting in the chair during the audition, I like to ask, who's a zombie in your life? Everyone has gone through something, right? You've had like a breakup or some bullies or something. There's a zombie in your life that may be trying to come through and mess with you, right? So who's a zombie in your life? Well, at that time, I had a zombie in my life. I was in LA trying for the pilot season, auditioning and stuff, and I get this knock on the door. Well, no one knew where I was. I played Mufasa in The Lion King, and I was staying with the couple that played Simba and Nala, and I get this knock, and it's an ominous knock. And sometimes you know that's for you, and it was FedEx. And there was a letter saying you have a court date in October for divorce. I was married for like 26 years, right? And you been there? Yeah, okay. Yeah. And I'm like, no one knows I'm here, and I get this paper. So during that time was when I had the audition, okay? And yeah, so I like to tell people the German folk story because it's funny, and that was true, but I was also numb. I was just like, I was a zombie. I was dead inside, and I think that's why I went, F it, lick them phone. Maybe you die. And no, that's all right. I didn't go that far, but so when you look at genocide, which I did, I looked at genocide, but I was also looking at how often. Well, when I grew up, I was born in Tampa, Florida, and so I'm from the South. Okay, so being from the South in the 50s and 60s. Like today's time, things are happening, and people are like, oh, woe is me. I'm like, you guys just ain't shit. You don't know from problems, baby. What was your thought? No, okay. So I'm thinking about, my mom was a big black woman. She was a big black woman, like big black. And they would beat, in the South, you got your ass toe up. We call it getting toe up, we call it killings, with an extension cord. Oh, there's no cord. Like that, with an extension cord, and but you find out later they're doing it for your benefit,
Hurts me more than it hurts you.
Yeah, I never understood that one. But I was thinking, often it's the boogeyman that's inside your house. The boogeyman can't be you, but it's inside your house. So there are times when the way we were trained to work, I'm not supposed to use that stuff. I can't use it, it's too fresh. I'm supposed to use something 5 years back. But there are times that would cross over, right? Just cross over. And I ain't gonna tell you no more because I don't want to get emotional. But it felt good to just like, you get the shit out. And being a big black guy, I would go to a friend's house, afterwards because I'm hurting and stuff, and you go knock on the door. Hey, they should call me Big Daddy. That was my name at UCLA, Big Daddy. I played football there and all that kind of stuff. Mark Harmon, Big Kid, right? So if I'm hurting, hey, bro, what's wrong with you, man? Oh, man, shit ain't nothing. We come to you. You can't come to us with problems. So that's why I loved playing that role of Big Daddy, because it allowed me to get a lot of stuff out. And it allowed me to think about when people get destroyed, not knowing it's happening. Just like right now with the bombing over there, you're all of a sudden over, they're gone, or wherever that happens. So I'm gonna leave it alone because. So I'm also, I like to do stand-up comedy, and so it's not funny anymore, so I'm gonna stop.
Well, we are gonna take some questions from the audience, so if you have any questions, we have a mic stand right there. We don't have a mic in it just yet, but we will put one in there shortly. Go ahead and start lining up if you have a question, and we will start going through. So before we get to your question, I do wanna ask you, Paul, do you have any anecdotes, stories, or something funny to share about George? Not offhand.
I have one.
Yes, please, share.
Well, when we were doing my scene on Sanibel Island, it was the scene where I come through the gate and Miguel is on the platform, and we go onto the platform with Miguel, and before he lowers it, he had pulled open the gate and I had come through, and I had my wristwatch on, and it was in the shot. So George yelled, "Cut! Mailbox 22, I need to come, I need to see you." And I figured, oh, I'm only 19, I'm scared. I figured, that's it, he didn't like me, I'm fired, that's it, he's sending me home. So I go and I walked, and back then, even though it was a clear day in December in Florida, blue sky and everything, they were all smokers, big smokers. I'm walking toward this cloud of smoke, and George is there, and the crew is there, and Mike Gornick is there, and he said, "No, what you did was great, but I need you to take your watch off." So I had to take the watch off, and I lifted up the thing that the pants that I was wearing that they gave me, and I stuffed it in my sock. Thankfully, it was the 80s, and tube socks were still in style. And then they came over and they touched it up, and then I went. Now, and again, like Eugene was saying, George, didn't really give much direction. He pretty much let. But what he told me is, what you did the first time was great. I want you to do it exactly the same way that you did it. So we rolled it back, and it's a long shot where I come through the gate, and then we come across, and then we're up on the platform, and you can see my hand touch Miguel's sweaty face, and that's the last shot that you see before they cut down below and then back up again for all the FX, and then I heard, "That was great! Cut!" And then that was it. So we only did that scene 2 times. The second one stayed in, and then the mailbox, the reason why this says mailbox in the front is because the friggin' jersey would not fit on me properly because I was so short. So they made me turn it around. Now, to this day, had I not done that, we wouldn't know that, nobody would remember that it said mailbox. So, and then it created a continuity flaw because the scenes that were filmed in the Wampum Mines beforehand with, John as Dr. Fisher and all that, the extra that was wearing the jersey was wearing it correctly. You could just see the number. And then when she comes down the elevator and walks through, the reason why I said she is Gary Clark, who played Steele. I did a convention with him 12 years ago for the first time, and he says, "By the way, Mike, I got a little secret for you." He says, "Not only was an extra a lot taller than you, but it was also a woman." And he did that high-pitched Steele laugh, that he does. And because I didn't share any screen time with any of the principal actors except Miguel, who just recently passed away. And only now that I start to reconnect with them, and I'm starting to hear these stories. But Gary Clark, who played Steele, it was such a nasty character, but he was such a gentleman in life. He didn't do the internet, he wasn't technical, but that man would always call me on my birthday, call me to check on me. A lot of them do. I hear from Kyra, I hear from Marilyn Eastman. My family and I own a bicycle repair shop. My brother picks up the phone. "Michael, there's a Marilyn Eastman on the phone for you. She wants to speak to you."
That's so
Yes,
great.
that's my funny story.
Amazing. All right, let's take a question.
Hey guys, I've met you guys throughout the week and I've had a wonderful time. I just want to say thank y'all for coming out and letting us get a chance to interact with y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah. So going off with what you guys were talking about with props that you guys have owned and whatnot, was there any props throughout your movies that you would love to own? And it can be anything. It could be like the whole like fluffy prop. It could be anything from Martin, Dawn, Day, Land. It could be any prop.
I want my rifle, and I want my jackhammer.
I wouldn't mind having a helicopter.
Everyone
I
needs
wasn't
one.
involved in that one.
John?
Unfortunately, I'm not a collector. I wish I had started collecting a long time ago. But no, I don't really have anything anymore other than the stuff that I use when I come to conventions.
Michael?
Yeah, I just wish I had the helmet and the original jersey, but we had to give all that stuff back.
Yeah.
And I know, and I would have saved the Nike sneakers that I was wearing, because there is a brief little shot of that in there. Again, you would know, I didn't know any of this until the Blu-ray came out.
Right,
In
right.
fact, I didn't even know that there were any scenes with my eyes open until
Until you can see it
until
in
it
Blu-ray.
was just so clear.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
because back in the day there was home video, and they just used this shitty, dark, low contrast, 35 millimeter print to make the VHS and the laser
Yeah.
disc. But compared to what we have now, it just blows it away.
Everything's so
There's no
much-
comparison. I'm sure those of you that are collectors out there that have this film on every medium that exists would agree with me on that.
Yeah. Paul, is there anything you'd like to, that you wish you had kept? Or that you would like to have? Any other prop?
I wouldn't mind having the shirt I wore, the plaid shirt.
Yeah.
But I have one, a replica of it.
Do you?
I'm happy with, yeah.
That's good.
A fan gave it to me, yeah.
That's awesome. That's even better. You got it from a fan. Thank you so much for your question. All right, we have time for one more question.
I just out of curiosity, you know, you guys, sounds like you all met George and knew him well, but what are some of the things you did outside of movies, maybe with George? You know, because it seems like he was a personable guy. I met him once years ago, just briefly, you know, one of those things where he was at a convention and nobody was there, and I walked up and said, "Hey, you're George Romero, you're the father of zombies," and he just kind of looked up at me like nobody had recognized him except for me. I kind of wonder, what was he like outside of the movies, and did any of you get to interact with him outside of being a director?
I did several conventions with George for about a couple of years, and he was amazing, overly generous, amazing. But to your question, you said nobody was there. No one was there at that time.
Yeah, it
Because
was.
normally his lines are long.
Yeah, it was. He was at an odd convention. It was actually a comic book convention he was at, which so of course it wasn't a horror convention. So a lot of people I don't think recognized him. Of course I did right
He's an
away.
amazing guy, very generous, loved to smoke, yes, but was overly generous to the point where you're like, so let me buy something. You know? He was amazing, great to be with. I was overprotective for him. I used to be an executive bodyguard years ago, and whenever I was with him, be it England or anywhere, I turned into executive bodyguard. Wow. No one knew that, but I was always watching for someone to try something. I would tell people something, you know, Big Daddy is in here. I don't want to see him.
All right,
That's
thank
good to
you.
keep in mind.
Mark that for later.
Definitely.
Thank you again for your question. Well, we are out of time. Thank you so much, gentlemen. This has been an absolute pleasure and privilege. Please. Thank you so much for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day. We will be having the next panel very shortly with Jessica Roth. So
Let's go.
see you soon.